Last week after the loss to the Denver Broncos, head coach Dan Quinn said, "We lost the game, but we are no longer lost." Today, the Washington Commanders got lost again, 31-0. Blowout loss, shutout loss on the road in U.S. Bank Stadium versus J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are not a good football team, guys, but guess what? The Washington Commanders are even worse. And in the first game where this Commanders offense has been completely healthy going into a football game, they have their worst offensive performance of the season and score 0 points versus the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to talk about this embarrassment on today's post-game edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. And no matter how bad the Commanders are, we try to give you guys the best Commanders coverage anywhere here on YouTube. We try to give you guys a quality product, unlike what the Commanders give to us on Sundays. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we've already started our early off-season content. We're going to continue with that as this season continues to get worse. An 8th straight loss for the Washington Commanders today. Just a pure, straight-up joke. All right, so we take a look here at the game and the stats. And, you know, this is a Vikings team that doesn't run the football very well. They ran all over this Washington Commanders defense today. J.J. McCarthy even looked like a decent starting quarterback today. 3 touchdown passes. Only had 16 completions. And when you're an NFL starting quarterback and you can only complete 16 passes and win the game by over 30 points, that's a good setup. That's a Michigan Wolverines type of setup that J.J. McCarthy had today. And, you know, on the other side there on the Commanders, defense was terrible. Mike Sainristil took a bunch of steps back in coverage in terms of the way he had been playing the last 2 weeks. Bobby Wagner still sucks. Frankie Louvu still sucks. This pass rush still can't get to the quarterback. You know, it's just a huge step backwards for this Washington Commanders team, both sides of the ball. Jayden Daniels, less than 50% completion percentage, had an interception. Wasn't a great day for JD coming back off of that elbow dislocation. And, you know, Terry McLaurin leads your team in receiving with 41 yards, but obviously, you know, that connection between Jayden and Terry not playing together since week 2, you could just tell that this group was completely out of sync all day long, and who can blame them after not playing with each other all season long, going up against a Brian Flores defense in a really tough environment in Minnesota. U.S. Bank is one of the loudest stadiums in the National Football League. Some injury updates here. Jayden Daniels left the game with an elbow issue. Head coach Dan Quinn did say that Jayden could have come back in the game. It was a minor kind of setback there, but they decided to keep him out for the rest of the game and, you know, play it safe with Jayden. I think that's the right call. And unless he's back to 100% next week, don't play him next week. I mean, just you got to preserve Jayden Daniels. And, you know, we'll talk about Jayden later in the show here, but definitely not his best game today. Then we get to Zach Ertz, and this one really sucks, man, because he is in probably the final year of his career, and it looked like he just suffered, you know, one of the nastiest injuries I've ever seen. Probably ACL tear and maybe even like a leg fracture. His leg completely whipped around after getting hit, and it's just one of the nastiest injuries I've ever seen. I would be shocked if Zach Ertz plays another down in the National Football League. If there's any silver lining to that, it's that Ben Sinnott, the second-year tight end, was going to get probably some more run as the rest of the season goes on, and you can fully evaluate him without having to sit Zach Ertz on the bench when he's healthy. But, you know, certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to Zach and his family, because that is a nasty injury. It's probably going to take a while to get back from, just so he can walk again, frankly. That was just absolutely disgusting. But now we get to our takeaways. First takeaway for me, guys, is that, you know, last week, even though you lost, it felt like you took a step forward. And this week it felt like you took 3 steps back. Like, the Commanders are going to be in the conversation to be the worst team in the National Football League this year. They're going to be in the conversation to have a top 5 draft pick next year. Now, that's going to put you in position to trade back and get a bunch of draft picks and make up some of those draft picks that you lost for the trades that you made for Laramie Tunsil and for Marshawn Lattimore, all these picks that Adam Peters has traded away. That's going to put you in position to either take a really good player high in the draft or to trade down and get a bunch of picks for a team trying to get a quarterback. But you know, it's just disheartening because you played so well and you played so much heart last week at home versus the Broncos, and then to come out in this game, in a game that really felt winnable. I mean, J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings have not played well this year. And, you know, to have your entire starting offense back, it felt like this was going to be the week that the Commanders finally broke through, got a big win, and that obviously wasn't the case today, and it was far from the case. Losing by over 30 points in the National Football League is a straight-up embarrassment, period. Then we get to the defense here, and, you know, I've been singing Dan Quinn's praises as the defensive play caller of this team, and I still think that it's probably the best path forward for him to call plays for this defense, but Kevin O'Connell is an excellent play caller. He knows how to manipulate a defense. And he exploited the many weaknesses in this Washington Commanders defense today, whether it was Quan Martin, whether it was Mike Samerstill, whether it was Bobby Wagner, whether it was Frankie Louvu. J.J. McCarthy looked as comfortable as he's ever looked as the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings today. And that sucks. This was, like I said, it was like more of like a Michigan Wolverines type of game where you're playing against Bowling Green or some shit, and he's got a 30-point lead. He only has to complete 16 passes on the day, ends up getting 3 touchdowns. But it's not like, J.J. McCarthy was lighting it up today or anything like that. Honestly, I think the biggest thing was the run game, and the fact that Jordan Mason got 52, Aaron Jones added 76 on top of that. I mean, just extreme efficiency in the run game. The offensive line for the Vikings dominated the front of the Washington Commanders. The Commanders couldn't tackle today. Tackling has been an issue for this Commanders defense all season long, but today might have been their worst tackling performance. It was just, in a season filled with really disappointing, really bad defensive performances. Maybe outside of the Seattle Seahawks game, this one was probably the most embarrassing for me. And someone explained to me how we made J.J. McCarthy look good today. I mean, this guy has looked bad all season long. And today it looked like he was back at Michigan, just able to hand the ball off a million times. They're going to get yardage for him. Play action, throwing the football, the open receivers, everybody on the field on the Vikings offense is better than the Commanders defense. They're feeling really good about themselves, and good for them, but this is not a good Vikings offense particularly, and it's not a good quarterback, and they looked more than competent today. That just goes to show you how bad this Commanders defense is at this current stage. So you be the judge for me down there in the comments section. Grade the performance today for the Commanders. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. If you're not putting an F in there, I don't know what warrants an F, if I'm being completely honest with you. You lose by 31 points to a team that is already out of the playoff picture as well. It's just an absolute embarrassment. Have to give it an F. Both sides of the ball, maybe their worst performances of the year. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'll let you guys know about a great opportunity to get a great piece of Commanders apparel before the holidays. Well, I'll tell you about that great opportunity. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F, and you better be putting your Fs down there in the comments section. With that, if you guys want a Commanders Salute to Service hoodie, now maybe you don't want anything to remind you of the 2025 Commanders schedule, but I really think that the Salute to Service stuff this year is really stylish. I love the Army green, the American flag patch is always on the right sleeve with the Commanders logo there on the chest. You guys can get it for a great price right now when you go chatsports.com/salute25. You guys can use that link. And if you use that link and make a purchase, part of the proceeds go back to us here at the Commanders Report. So I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Then we get into the second half of our takeaways here. And Mike Samerstill took a big step back this week, guys. Today was so bad in coverage for Mikey against, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Good route runners, good players. But, Mikey was so bad today that you have to wonder, if he really is the option at number 2 cornerback moving forward. I think we all know Trey Amos is the future at that outside cornerback position. But if Mike Samerstill continues to play the way that he played today on the outside, there's no way that you can go into next season with him as your starting outside corner. And it sucks because you spent a high draft pick on him just last year and all that stuff, and you want to give him every opportunity to be a starter in this defense next year. But if he plays the way that he played today, the rest of the season, I think outside corner is absolutely a need for the Washington Commanders next year. And as much as it sucks to say that, younger players like Quan Martin, Mike Samerstill, et cetera, Jazon Newton are playing as bad as they are, it's just the truth. And, you spent high draft picks on those guys, and they might not even be playable next year. If this defense wants to turn around, which absolutely is terrible. But then I'm seeing a lot of people on Commanders Twitter, all that stuff, freaking out about Jayden Daniels. And listen, man, it wasn't a good day for JD, but people are like, oh, we made the wrong decision. We should have gone with Drake May, all this different stuff. But, I don't even know if Drake May is going to get the Patriots, a better team than Jayden Daniels has ever had in these first 2 years, to the AFC Championship game. And Jayden Daniels led a worse Commanders roster last year to what Drake May has in New England this year to the NFC title game. And, when Jayden, has the opportunity to work with Terry McLaurin in an entire offseason and during an entire preseason, he didn't have that this year. When he's not going up against a Brian Flores defense after taking a month off of playing. all these different things. And I know it sounds like I'm making excuses for Jayden Daniels right now, guys, but we've seen what Jayden Daniels is capable of doing. All right, Jayden Daniels, I still believe, is going to be the quarterback that wins the next Lombardi Trophy for this organization. I am still fully in on Jayden Daniels. And if you're not, stay on that side when this guy is winning Super Bowls for this organization. Please and thank you. All right, I understand Drake May's playing great ball this year. That's fantastic. Good for the Patriots. Good for Drake May. We still got one of those guys in Jayden Daniels. And when he gets healthy, when this roster hopefully gets retooled and revamped for next year, maybe they bring in his buddy Brandon Ayuk in the offseason. It seems like that's almost a foregone conclusion. And he has got a legitimate wide receiver duo in Ayuk and McLaurin next year. Maybe, Daniels is going to start, playing a lot better next year. But, taking a month off, having to play against this defense in particular, losing the entire game. He didn't play well today. I'm not trying to say he did. But, to say that that we should give up on him or that, we should have drafted Drake May and we're done with Jayden Daniels. If anyone's out there saying it, all I got to say to you guys is stay on that side when Jayden Daniels turns it around next season and this organization is back to winning big time. All right, so the final takeaway here is that we are closer to a higher pick. That's the takeaway. That's the positive takeaway out of this game, guys, is that you're closer to that higher draft pick. Now, we'll see if, Jayden plays next week. It sounds like he's got a chance to play next week. And we'll see how the defense plays the rest of the year, how the offense plays the rest of the year, all that different stuff. I actually thought the run game was okay for the Commanders today, but certainly not good enough. Didn't finish drives, obviously. A lot of bad stuff for the Washington Commanders today. But losing this game gets you closer to that top 5 range. I think probably this week you will be in that top 5 range in terms of draft positioning. And, if you don't win next week, guys, against the Giants, you got Eagles to finish the season. You might finish the year with 12 straight losses if you do not win next week. So if you're hoping for, a lose-out situation and the Commanders get the best possible pick, they only have 3 wins right now. So, if they lose out, they're going to be very high up there in the draft positioning, and maybe at this point, that's what's best for this organization. But point the finger for me down there in the comment section. What's the most to blame for the loss today? For me, you can talk about Dan Quinn and the coaching staff not getting these guys ready to play. You can certainly talk about the defense just playing one of their worst games of the season, probably their second worst game of the season. I think number 1 has to go to Seattle, but giving up 31 points to J.J. McCarthy is a fucking joke. And that's exactly what they did today. Some final thoughts here before we wrap things up. Like I said, giving up 31 points to a J.J. McCarthy Vikings offense today. I don't care if you're on the road. I don't care that Jayden Daniels hasn't played in a month. I don't care that Jayden and Terry haven't played together since week 2. I don't give a shit about any of that. All right, this was an embarrassing performance. And, I'm not saying that we got to make changes at the head coaching position or at quarterback. Some people might go there, but I'm certainly not willing to do that. It was a bad week. And it was a bad week for a bad football team, and we just have to acknowledge that that's what the Commanders are at this point. And I'm hoping that, we can see some positive signs as the season gets into its final month here, and we see Jayden play better, and we see Terry and that connection get going a little bit. Maybe we see Ben Sinnott play pretty well. Maybe the running backs, some of them show promise for the future. Maybe the defense can put together a decent, okay weeks. But, right at this point, guys, the season's been over for weeks at this point. For probably about a month at this point, and losing by J. I just can't get over the fact that you allowed J.J. McCarthy in this offense put up over 30 points on you. It's just an embarrassment. It's a joke, and it should be very, very, very sad for every Commanders fan out there to see this team lose its 8th straight game. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report post-game show. I appreciate you guys sticking with me here to the end. Bad day if you're a Washington Commanders fan, but promise you guys, brighter days are on the horizon. I think you got your right head coach. I think you've got the right quarterback. Hopefully, they can figure some things out at the end of this season to hopefully give us some hope heading into 2026. But that's going to do it. That's going to do it for today's show, guys. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage on the Washington Commanders for you guys. And until next time, hail to the Commanders.